February 26, 2022. Western leaders do something that hasn't been done in 50 years. They cut Russia from the global banking system. Transactions freeze, trade stops, financial isolation. It was meant to cripple Russia's economy. It did, but it also did something else. It showed 150 countries exactly how vulnerable they are. And they started building alternatives. Or, as Finney likes to say, the best weapon is one you never have to use. The second you use it, everyone starts building their own. This is that story. Welcome to Finney Chronicles, where history meets money, power meets consequence, and every story is a warning somebody ignored. Before we talk about what happened when Russia got cut off, you need to understand what they got cut off from. SWIFT. Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. SWIFT is how banks talk to each other. When you send money abroad, SWIFT is the message that says, move $1,000 to this account. Simple, essential, global. It connects over 11,000 banks in more than 200 countries. If the global financial system is a body, SWIFT is the nervous system. It doesn't hold your money. It doesn't move your money. It just tells everyone where the money should go. Every day, 42 million messages. A furniture maker in Vietnam getting paid by Walmart. A German car company buying steel from Brazil. An American tourist's credit card working in Tokyo. All of it runs through SWIFT. And for 50 years, it worked perfectly. Neutral, Belgian-based, technically not controlled by any one country. But here's the thing. SWIFT is based in Belgium, a NATO country. Its primary servers, United States and Europe. And since 88% of all foreign exchange transactions happen in dollars, that means the U.S. has visibility into almost everything. SWIFT might be neutral on paper, but in practice, the dollar, and by extension the United States, runs the show. Like Finney says, neutral is a nice idea until someone pays the server bill. Over the years, the U.S. has used that power. 2012, Iran gets partially cut from SWIFT. North Korea, limited access. But these were small countries, pariah states, never a major economy, never a nuclear power, never a country that supplies 40% of Europe's natural gas. Until February 2022. We're building the complete timeline of financial history on this channel, from Rome to Wall Street. If you want to see how the next crash will happen by studying the past, make sure to subscribe. Okay, let's get back to the video. February 24, 2022. Russia invades Ukraine. Western nations respond immediately. Sanctions, asset freezes, export controls. But the nuclear option, cutting Russia from SWIFT, that's debated. Germany hesitates. Italy hesitates. Why? Because Russia supplies 40% of Europe's natural gas. Cut SWIFT and paying for that gas becomes nearly impossible. But 2 days later, the decision is made. February 26th, the EU, US, UK, and Canada announce Russia's major banks will be removed from SWIFT. Sberbank, VTB, disconnected. The effects are immediate. Russians flood ATMs. Within 72 hours, the ruble loses 30% of its value. A grandmother's savings worth 750,000 rubles on Thursday buys 30% less bread by Monday. The Russian stock market closes for a month. Western companies flee. Supply chains freeze. It's financial warfare, and it's working. But while the West celebrates, the rest of the world is taking notes. China, India, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Turkey. Every country that isn't perfectly aligned with Washington, they're watching Russia, a nuclear power, a G20 economy, get financially erased. Overnight. That could be us. And they start making phone calls. March 2022. 1 month after Russia is cut from SWIFT, China makes an announcement that barely gets covered in Western media. They're expanding CIPS, the cross-border interbank payment system, China's alternative to SWIFT. Launched in 2015, CIPS was always meant as a backup, a way to trade in yuan without using dollars or SWIFT. After Russia got cut off, CIPS participation surges. Russia starts looking for workarounds, yuan-ruble trade. Within months, bilateral trade deals that bypass the dollar start appearing everywhere. India buys Russian oil, but not in dollars, in rupees and rubles. A tanker captain in the Arabian Sea who used to invoice everything in dollars now carries contracts in 3 currencies, and dollars aren't always one of them. 20 years ago, his father would have laughed at the idea. The dollar was everything, the only currency that mattered on international waters. Now, however, his son is learning Mandarin. Then comes the earthquake. Saudi Arabia, America's oldest Southeast Asian ally, starts discussing selling oil to China in yuan. not dollars. Yuan. For 50 years, oil has been priced in dollars, the petrodollar system. It started in 1974 when the U.S. made a deal with Saudi Arabia. Price your oil in dollars and we'll guarantee your security. Every country that wanted oil needed dollars first. That single arrangement made the dollar indispensable. And now it's cracking. 2023, the BRICS nations announced they're exploring a common currency. By 2024, the bloc is expanding. New systems, new currencies, new networks, all designed to do one thing: trade without the dollar. Like Finney says, reserve currency status isn't a right, it's a subscription, and the renewal rate just dropped.
In 1999, the dollar made up 71% of global reserve holdings. Today, 58%. It's not collapsing, but it's declining, and here's why that matters. The United States cut Russia from SWIFT to punish aggression, to defend Ukraine. Those goals were real, but every time you use the financial system as a weapon, you teach other countries not to trust the system. China sees Russia get cut off. Reaction: accelerate de-dollarization. Saudi Arabia sees Russian assets frozen. Reaction: diversify. Hedge bets. India sees the whole thing. Reaction: we need options. The U.S. didn't just sanction Russia, it unintentionally advertised the risk of dollar dependence to every country on Earth. Like Finney says, when you kick someone out of the game, don't be surprised when they start a new one. Now, this isn't the first time a reserve currency has fallen. Before the dollar, it was the British pound. For over a century, the pound was the world's money.
Then came World War II. Britain was broke. The U.S. was flush with cash. At Bretton Woods in 1944, the world agreed the dollar would be the new reserve currency, not because Britain wanted it, but because they had no choice. Here's what happened next. 1950, the pound made up about 60% of global reserve holdings. 1980, 20%. No crisis, no crash, just a slow, grinding loss of relevance. Britain went from ruling a quarter of the world to needing an IMF bailout in 1976, from global empire to struggling to heat homes during the winter of discontent, and Britain was never the same. The patterns rhyme. The dollar isn't destroyed, but for the first time in 80 years, it has competition, and competition changes everything. Like Finney says, history doesn't repeat, it just changes the font on the same invoice. So here's the takeaway. On February 26, 2022, Western nations made a choice: cut Russia from SWIFT, punish aggression, defend Ukraine. It worked. Russia's economy suffered, but the rest of the world started building a system that doesn't depend on the dollar. The dollar isn't destroyed, but it's no longer inevitable, and that has consequences. For most people, the shift won't feel like a crash. It'll feel like interest rates that stay higher for longer, mortgages that cost more, government debt that's harder to finance, a dollar that buys a little less abroad each year, that European vacation that costs 20% more than it did a decade ago. Slow, grinding, but real. For 80 years, the dollar was the only game in town. Now there are other games, smaller, newer, still developing, but growing. Because, as Finney likes to say, empires don't end with a bang. They end with a bill they can't pay, and the dollar's bill just came due. So here's the question. Do you think the sanctions were worth the trade-off? Russia got hurt, but so did dollar dominance. Drop a comment. I want to know what you think. And if you want to understand how money has shaped power from ancient Rome to modern Wall Street, subscribe to Finney Chronicles. We drop new stories every second day. Next, click on I button above and watch The Con Man Who Sold the Eiffel Tower twice and walked away richer than the people he scammed. See you then.